Hey guys, welcome to the lecture. And just for any library or any framework that you want to start with, your first question will probably be is where should I get my documentation? Where should I start my hello world and what should I do to get on track with learning that language? And that's what we're going to address in the next couple of lectures. So the first thing that you will do for any such library or framework you're learning is you will hit its homepage. And that's what we will do for ReactJS too. You can just do a Google search on saying ReactJS, or you can go on to facebook.github.io/react. And as you can understand, this is an open source library by Facebook, and that's why it sits on Facebook's own GitHub. Once you land on the page, the next thing you will want to do is probably read through the features that ReactJS brings to you. And once you're done, or probably you want to play along with these examples that you see online, you can very well do that. But for our example, what we will do is we'll click on the Get Started button, and here you can see the hello world. But how do you implement the hello world? There are different options. What we can go is we can go to installation. Now, once we go into the installation, there are many ways you can add React to a new or an existing project. And you can see there is also a way of creating a single page application using React with some commands, of course. And we will talk about these in greater details during the lectures. Also, the next thing is we can add to an existing application, and there are other options too. But the interesting option that we want to use right now is using a CDN. Now, when you head on to the section where you have using a CDN, you can see there are two options. One, you have the script, which is the normal script tags. And of course, this you have a minified version. Just copy the minified version and head on to codepen.io. When you go on to codepen.io, you can see a screen something like this. Of course, you'll see a new pin out here or new pen. And once you do that, you can click and you can see. Your view may not be the same because I think this is the default view that you see. But for our purpose of the exercise, I've changed the view to this one. Now, that being said, you can also change the settings where you can decide the pre-compiler you want or the pre-composer. So it has a HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So in JavaScript, I selected Babel because React works well with Babel. Now, once you have done save and close, what you can do is you can start pasting your minified files that you just copied. Now, one thing to note is you can see React @15. Now, React keeps getting updated. However, 15 is a very stable version, or which is the production version of React. There are many major and minor versions like 15.4.2, 15.4.3, etc., which may come and which may become the stabler version. But when you do a React @15, you are rest assured that the most recent or the most stable version is what you will get. Now, that being said, let's write our first div in our HTML. Let's say div id equals to root. Once you close the div, this is the div where your entire React can actually be outputted. So this div can be updated with React contents. Now, this is your div that can be updated. Now, how do you use React? So if you know, or if you have heard ever, that React provides you with a virtual DOM. And as you know that Facebook identified that the major time of updating a JavaScript page or an HTML page goes on to updating the DOM when you want to do a quick render. Now they created a virtual DOM, which means the user can immediately see what the impact is. However, this virtual DOM, whenever there is bandwidth, will make the changes to the actual DOM. So that is the ideology with which they went with. And as you can see with our imports or our includes out here, which is React DOM is included too. So we can use that React DOM very easily. What we can do is we can use the React DOM and we can use many of the API methods, and the one that we are going to use, it's called render. And as the name suggests, it renders something. It accepts two parameters. So parameter 1, parameter 2. Now, what is parameter 1? Well, parameter 1 is nothing but the HTML that you need to output. It could be one line of HTML or it could be your entire website, which is the whole of your HTML page. It depends on what and why you want that. The second parameter is, of course, the ID or the element in which you want to output this HTML. So for our example, this parameter 1 will become our hello world. So let's say h1. Let's close the h1 and let's say hello world. Now for parameter 2, what we can do is we can use the JavaScript's document.getElement by ID. And of course, this div, that root that we created, can now be very well used. So let's pass the ID of root and let's put the semicolon. And the moment we do that, we should start seeing the output as hello world. So that was our very first hello world application built with React.js with very minimal code and probably actually nothing. All we wrote was one div and one h1 tag that gave us the hello world. In the next video, we will enhance this example to create something more awesome. And I'll see you in the next class. Hey guys, so in the previous lecture, we saw a very small hello world example on how to create our first React application on CodePen.io. Now in this lecture, what we will do is we will extend that example to add some dynamic properties onto our React application. After all, we want to see the power that React brings on the table before we actually adopt to it, right? So let's do that. So the first thing that you see is you see a hello world. Now what if I need to display my name saying hello Abhay? In that case, it's very easy to write. All I have to do is let's create an element or a function which is constant, let's say user is equals to, you can give the first name, let's say Abhay, comma, last name, let's say Talreja. Now we have a first name and the last name. Let's write a small function saying format name, and here it will just use the same user element, which is return user dot first name plus, of course we'll add some space, and then we'll do a user dot last name. That's it. Now what we will do is instead of this hello world, what we can write is we can write a paragraph or a, let's say h1 tag itself. But to use this dynamically or the format name, it is very easy. What we will do is we can just say a curly bracket, and instead of giving in some something else, what we can do is format name as a function, and voila, the name appears. All you had to do was call the function from within the brackets, and there your name goes. So all we are doing is calling format name. Format name will actually return the first name and the last name, which we have it in our object, which is coming dynamically. So let's say if I want to update my name as Abhay2, in that case, the same code will refresh and you can see everything got refreshed here. So that was very easy on how we displayed the name with the format name and React. And now we added a dynamic property called name or a format name so that the name gets displayed on the screen. How about let's add some more dynamic content. So let's say we clear this whole thing out here and we write something fresh because I want to show you from scratch. So let's say we write a function called a tick. Now in this function, what we will do is we will first create our element, which is the HTML element that we need to display. So add the brackets, and once you do that, go on to the next line and just give another div. Now this div is just to make sure that we have all our contents within a closed div. Now we can use something called as an h1 and close the h1. Now once we give the h1, what we can write is hello world, because we were still doing the hello world. Now let's add something dynamic. Let's say I want to add the time or the current time that I see right now. I need to make sure I print it out. It is very easy in JavaScript as well as in React. So let's say in h1, what I can say it is, and I need to give something dynamic out here. So what I will do is I'll just give a new date, and when I give new date, it has to be in the brackets. So let me make sure I do that. Once I do a new date, what I can do is I can do a to locale time string. What this will give me is the current local time. Now what we can do is we can render the React DOM from within the function itself. Let me show you. So React DOM dot render. Now we are in the function, and so we already have our element as well. So what I can do is I can use the element itself. So I don't need to give any HTML, and my HTML is element out here, which is the div with the h1 and the h2 tag. Once I do that, I need to make sure I update the document.getElement by ID and pass in the root. Now we need to make sure that our tick function or our time gets displayed every 1 second or gets updated. So the way we can do that is we can use the set interval method which JavaScript provides us. So let's do a set interval. Once we get the set interval, all we need to do is pass the tick function. Once we pass the tick function, we can tell the time that it needs to update with. Let's say 1000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. And voila, as you can see on the screen, the time starts ticking. Now let's quickly do a view source and see what happens. So let me go here and let me go here. So now you can see the entire page is constant. Nothing changes. The only thing that changes is the time, which means React only updates things that are needed to be updated, and it doesn't change anything in the page, which means when you have the real DOM that updates or what you see, you only update one element. And how do you manage that? When you have a virtual DOM, so React updates the virtual DOM using the JavaScript, and the JavaScript lets the real DOM updates by itself. So the user doesn't see anything else except those elements getting updated. So that is the power that React brings onto the table. I hope these small 2-3 examples gives you a little idea on the power and the potential that React has got. Of course, the big framework or the big libraries that are supported with React is countless, and definitely it makes your life as a programmer very easy. So I'll see you in the next class.